In our listing, we did put the fact that it was being run by 10, 11, and 12-year-olds.
When you go to soccer and you're talking to kids from other schools, are they also managing their own Airbnbs?
No, not at all. We had a workshop called How to Manage an Airbnb.
Wow.
And we bought an Airbnb property, and then we actually have someone staying in it currently.
You do? Really?
Yeah, for the summer.
Oh my gosh, so you guys are making money on this right now. Okay,
right.
so you just said something, and Byron, I love talking to you because the things that come out of your mouth, it's like so just, yeah, this is normal. And just to be clear, it is not normal to have an 11-year-old who is so well-spoken and so thoughtful about your answers. So again, you just crush it. It's awesome. Let's talk a little more about the Airbnb check and what all was involved in that.
So it was a year-long workshop, actually. Most of our workshops are just session by session, so we have different ones each session, but sometimes you have one that's going to take longer than that. In this workshop, we were working on something different each session. So the first session, we were working on understanding some things about renting out properties and cash flow, financial literacy kind of stuff, and short-term rental, mid-term, long-term, and all of that.
Now, are these things that you had any idea about before? Do
I
any
mean,
of your friends know about this? Like when you
No.
go to soccer and you're talking to kids from other schools, are they also managing their own Airbnbs?
No, not at all.
No, they're not. Okay, great. So first session, you were learning basic financial literacy stuff. Okay.
And just learning some of the basics of managing a property. And then the second session, we started looking at properties to buy. And then the decision came up whether we wanted to buy a property or rent out a property that allowed you to rent out an apartment in a property that allowed you to do short-term rentals in it.
And that's a complicated decision, right? There's a lot that goes into
Right,
making
right,
that
right.
decision. So you were learning about ownership versus renting. You, of course, had to figure out the rules about if you rented, would they allow rentals of Airbnbs, all kinds of things. Okay, that's interesting. So what did you ultimately decide?
So we ended up actually renting a property. It's because we found that this was a project that's not going to be like a couple years long, and we didn't want to end up buying a property and then having to sell it later on, just having more work there. So we ended up just renting out one, and I think we have a rental until
amazing
like a year or two from now.
Okay, so you found a property you wanted to rent. Then what happened?
Right. So then we the next session we finally bought the property at the beginning, and then we started furnishing it and getting everything ready for our first day. And then just at the end of the session, about a week before, we listed it, and then we immediately started to get people that were looking at it. And in our listing, we did put the fact that it was being run by 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, and despite that, people would come, and we even got 5-star reviews, and so people were very happy with it. And
wow! And so, are students like you the ones that are responding back and forth to inquiries from potential renters, or are your guides helping you with that?
Right. So our leader for the workshop, Jamal, he's one of our alpha guides and in L2, and we would all look at a message from someone together about like an offer for how much they want to pay for renting out the property for this amount of time, and then we would all kind of decide together on whether we wanted it, whether we didn't, what we should tell them in response, what options we have. And then Jamal was kind of working the person-to-person text,
sure,
that kind of thing. But
yeah, but you guys
we were all
involved.
working together to decide on it. Yeah.
That is amazing. Okay, so this was a year-long workshop. And one of the checks for your level was being able to manage an Airbnb. Tell me, what are the life skills you believe you learned from that experience?
So I'd say, and just first of all, this is like something you would never learn at any other schools, these kind of things.
Nope.
And it's the first one is in general managing rental properties and the different consequences and the different risks of different types of rentals, and then also from our first session, mainly financial literacy, and that's something I'll use a lot, I'd say. And then also like interacting with other people and trying to negotiate their offers and trying to get better offers from them to get a better price on it. So there are a lot of useful life skills.
I bet. And then you were, of course, working with your team of other students. Did you guys ever have disagreements about how to move forward with the decision?
So we even got assigned sides when we were trying to decide whether we wanted to buy a property or rent it, and we got assigned 2 sides, and you had to, even if you didn't agree with it, you still had to argue for your side. So we were learning kind of that negotiation side of it. so that we had a full day designated to that. And but there were some disagreements in whether we should buy or rent out a property.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I love that example you gave about how even if you personally believe that, you should rent a property versus buy a property, you have to argue both sides. That's actually another check that we kind of have, is you have to be able to play devil's advocate. That's a life skill. We want students to be able to say, hey, whatever I personally believe, I can argue both sides equally well. And doing that. So I love that example.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Future of Education. And can we just take a second and think about how awesome this kid is? Byron is really an amazing example, but I will say that I don't think he is some unique unicorn. I believe all kids are just really cool and amazing. And when we give them an opportunity to develop who they are, to learn about what makes them tick, and to support them, I think this is the kind of results that we can see from our kids. That's why we believe kids are limitless, and it's our job to build an environment that helps to unlock that potential, like what you got to experience with Byron. So if you want more information, you can always go to our show notes on futureofeducationpod.com. And of course, you can always reach out on social media. On Instagram, it's futureof_education, or you can search Future of Education on YouTube. That's all for now. Until next time, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to help unlock that potential.